Hi everyone, I am Deborah and welcome to the Alchemy of Love Exploring Inner Healing for Healthy Relationships podcast. I am an Akashic Records reader, angel communicator and channeler, intuitive artist, and intuitive development coach. And I'm also passionate about trauma healing. And in this podcast, I talk about energy healing in yourself and in your relationships, attachment styles, codependency, trauma bonds, cluster B personality disorders, toxic relationships, feminine energy, polarity, but also metaphysics, soul contracts, psychic energy, and more. Welcome to this first episode of my new podcast. And I am going to try to keep the episodes strictly to one specific topic because there is a whole variety of different topics here. And sometimes they will kind of merge into each other. Like when we talk about attachment styles, we automatically will also be touching on codependency, and we automatically will be touching on trauma bonds because they are all interconnected. But just so that we can really focus on one specific thing, I'm going to try to keep it to one topic. And the topic of feminine energy and polarity is also connected to things like codependency and trauma bonds. And then again, also soul contracts and collective programming. So we could go on and on about this, and I am foreseeing a lot of different episodes, and I am also really looking forward to all of your input. Now, I started out by asking on my social media if people had any questions for me when it came to these different topics. And I did get a whole lot of different questions, and I kind of put them under different titles, different topics. So, what I'm going to be talking about today is mainly attachment styles. Now, we are going to be touching on these other topics that I mentioned before. And if you have any questions, of course, send them my way, send them through the contact form on my website, send them in direct messages on social media. I may not see it right away, but I will always eventually respond. And of course, stay tuned for upcoming episodes. So let's just dive right into this handful of questions that I received this past week about attachment styles. So let's go to the first. Well, no, let's first explain what is attachment styles for those that are listening and have no idea what I'm talking about. For about 35 years of my life, I'm going to be 37 next week, I had no idea what attachment styles were. I didn't know that there were different attachment styles. I also didn't know that you could change your attachment style, that this basically got formed and shaped during your childhood, that this got influenced by whether you had emotionally available parents or not. Generally speaking, there are 4 attachment styles. However, I believe that this is a spectrum, that this is kind of a spectrum. And the 4 attachment styles are a secure attachment style, there is an anxious attachment style, there is the avoidant attachment style, and there is the disorganized attachment style. So what are these 4 attachment styles? The secure attachment style is somebody that is very comfortable, mentally speaking, that had a childhood where their emotional needs were met, where they were made to feel validated. They were made to feel validated. They were worthy. Their emotions were valuable. Their parents took the time to emotionally support them into becoming stable and harmonious human beings, adults within themselves. Now, you would think that the majority of people would have a secure attachment style. Unfortunately, this is not the case because many people had parents that were basically traumatized themselves, because we have to face it, we live in a world that does not really facilitate emotional safety. So many people were raised by parents that meant well, but that simply did not have the capacity to hold space for their children in an emotional way that was necessary for these children to thrive. So many of these children will have gone two different ways. Generally speaking, some children will have become anxious. This means that they will have felt very unsafe. They will have started to act up and find ways to get negative attention, because attention, is still emotional needs being met. It is still you getting attention from your parents. So you will have started to act up. And this results when you are an adult in an anxious attachment style. Now, then there are those people that will have developed an avoidant attachment style. What is an avoidant attachment style? When you have parents that were constantly saying, I don't have time for you, go deal with that on your own. And these people, instead of acting up, instead of becoming a brat, instead of acting like the troublemaker, they accepted it and they turned inwards. They became very isolated. They would self-isolate as a coping mechanism. And when they are adults and difficult emotions come up, they will immediately default into avoiding, into isolating, into not bothering people with their emotions, and they will retreat and they will become avoidant when things get too emotional. Then there is the disorganized attachment style, which is a combination of those two, which sometimes develops when a child is kind of testing the waters and they are trying to apply both of those things. Because sometimes when this child tries to seek attention and it acts up and it is still not getting the attention, eventually it will just retreat. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes then they are just done. They're tired of trying to get the attention of the parent and they will just retreat. And that's when you get adults that have a disorganized attachment style, which is also called fearful avoidant, which is a combination of anxious attachment style and avoidant. And of all of the attachment styles, that is probably the most messed up one that you could end up with. That is probably the one that is going to take the most time to change. Because, let me answer, one of your questions here is, can you change an attachment style? Yes, because this is a learned behavior. This is a programming, and you can change this. And of course, you guys know that I am also a psychic. I work with energy, but I am extremely interested in the psychology of the brain and how attachment styles are formed. But I also like to always point out that everything is energy. So you can change this by reprogramming your subconscious mind, by reprogramming your childhood and how you coped with things, by the programming of that you were not valuable, you were not important enough, that you can change this programming, you can change your subconscious belief system about yourself, and therefore you can change your attachment style. Because if you are going to let your worth be determined, and you're going to hear me say this a lot, by those people around you, and then they are going to determine how you react. One being avoidant, one being anxious, or a combination. Then you have given away all your power. And you have given away your power, meaning that these other people are on some kind of pedestal, that they can determine how you behave, which is not true. You are no longer a child, you are an adult. So you can become secure. You can overwrite your anxious or avoidant programming. And I have done it. I am doing it, and I have done it for the most part, so I know that you can do this too. Now, is it going to be fun? No, not at all. Is it going to be easy? Absolutely not. But is it going to be worth it? Absolutely. It is absolutely going to be worth it, because you can then go back to your inner child, look at yourself, and have a conversation with your inner child, because this is usually where this took place, this programming, where this happened. You can go, let's do a little exercise just right now. Little exercise. Close your eyes. We're going to be doing more of these tiny little exercises in between meditations in this podcast. And just close your eyes. And breathe in and breathe out in a way that is comfortable for you. And just visualize your 7-year-old version in front of you. And if you have trouble visually perceiving your 7-year-old self, just get the feeling of the presence of your 7-year-old version in front of you. And connect with your heart to their heart and feel how they're feeling. Maybe they were feeling unseen. Maybe they were feeling ignored, neglected, not valuable, not deemed worthy enough by their parents to really be listened to be heard and seen. And now look at this little version of you and see how beautiful they are. And just send love from your heart to their heart. And tell them that nothing was ever their fault. They were always worthy. They were born worthy and valuable. And they deserved to be heard and seen. And you are the one that can see this child version of you right now. And you can open your eyes again and just realize that you get to choose who you want to be. You don't have to give your power away to other people. I have a suspicion that the majority of these episodes are going to be talking about attachment styles and everything that is connected to it, because it is just such a broad topic that I could go on and on about for a long time. Now, let me go over some of these questions that I received this past week. First question. Can you offer advice for dealing with your attachment style and trying to change it? Yes. First thing you have to do is become aware of the fact that you fall under one of these 4 categories of the different attachment styles. Become aware that there is a thing such as attachment styles, and there is a test that you can do. There are several tests. You can go to attachmentproject.com/attachment style quiz. You can just type that in Google, the Attachment Project Attachment Style Quiz, and it will bring you right to this quiz. And then it is all about becoming aware of what your attachment style is. And then you will realize, oh my God, I am either anxious, I'm secure, I am avoidant or disorganized. Now what? And then the thing is, okay, then it's all about going back to the root of where did I get this attachment style? Where did this get formed, programmed in my mind? Because nobody is born anxious. Nobody is born avoidant. In essence, all children are neutral. They are born in a secure attachment style. Now, a lot of things can influence your attachment style. your childhood, how you were raised, how your parents raised you, all kinds of experiences, traumatic experiences, your parents' personalities, whether you are dealing with codependency, trauma bonding, and even cluster B personality disorders in your family, that your parents may be in a toxic relationship. All this stuff can influence your attachment style, and you can absolutely try to change it. You can read about it, and the more that you read about it, the more that you're going to feel that you don't want to be this way, that you want to change it, that there are other ways to do this. And it's all about reprogramming. And I know that what I'm about to say is going to sound really stupid or silly. It's like how you train a dog, okay? You condition the dog to connect in the subconscious mind. You're going to be hearing me talking, I'm going to be talking a lot about the subconscious mind and reprogramming, because this is one of my passions. It's what I do in my psychic work. So you can reprogram your subconscious mind, you can reprogram your attachment style. And it's all about consistency, repeating. If you, for instance, have an anxious attachment style, then you will constantly be going outside of yourself. You will always be trying to seek validation from somebody else because you never got that in your childhood. Each time you catch yourself, just like when you're training a dog, you condition them. When they sit, you hold a treat in front of them and you say sit. So when they do the thing, you make sure that they know that they've done the thing. Same thing with you. And like after a while, the dog is gonna know. They're gonna link, oh, sitting, okay, sit. And they sit. They're gonna link the behavior to the command. So each time that you catch yourself doing something like for yourself, reward yourself. Make it all about yourself. And each time when you catch yourself being in your mind, going outside of yourself, being in anxious mode, put a hack in place. Put some kind of a hack in place that you do. And it's non-negotiable. It's a non-negotiable thing. When you catch yourself going outside of yourself, trying to find this validation in these other people around you, immediately go to this hack that you put in place. A good one, for instance, is that you walk up to the mirror. Whenever you catch yourself doing this, you walk up, like you stop whatever it is you're doing, walk up to the mirror, look at yourself and say, I am enough, or I am good enough, or whatever you want to say. Or one that I'm going to use from my friend Georgina, and she has a book coming out pretty soon. She actually gave me a screensaver for my phone, which is something that you can do. So she has a book coming out, and the title is What Would Love Say? That's the title of her book. And on this screensaver, it says, I am love. I can offer love as I am love. Now, this is something you can put this on your phone. I'm gonna put her details in the description so you can go and find that out. Just a positive affirmation that you can go and repeat to yourself. And in the beginning, you're gonna feel like you're lying to yourself. It's gonna feel forced, but after a while, you are going to believe yourself. And that is really the trick. Sometimes you have to fake it until you believe it. When you have an anxious attachment style or an avoidant attachment style, you have to pretend like you are already there, like you are already secure, like you believe in yourself and you believe everything that you say about yourself. Because after a while, if you repeat it enough and enough and enough, you're going to believe it. You're going to be living it. You're going to be feeling it. That's what you have to do. And often, you can also change your attachment style through more trauma, ironically, because initially your attachment style was formed by trauma. Now you can reach a point in your adult life where you have gone through so much more trauma as a result of this initial attachment style that was formed in your childhood, that a breaking point can be reached which is what happened with me. I reached a point where I realized that I don't know. I had a disorganized attachment style, and I came to this point where I realized that by giving my value away to the people around me and letting them determine if I was valuable by measuring their amount of love or attraction to me, and whether they were loving me a lot or not a lot, how this was going to make me feel about myself. Like, that's where I got my value from. And until a point where my heart got so broken that I felt like I was literally gonna die. I thought I was just gonna die right there. And my soul said, this has to stop. You have to stop this. That literally there is some kind of breaking point where you suddenly realize, like, what am I doing? What am I actually doing here? And that you realize that you are damaging yourself, that you are hurting yourself. And then you look in the mirror and say, oh my God, look at me. I am doing good in life. I have every reason to be happy. And then you decide that you are actually your best company, that you are your own best friend, and that any value that you have about yourself should come from you first. And that is where you will start to cultivate a secure attachment style from. And then you are going to be choosing yourself. And I don't mean that in an egotistical way, in a selfish way. I mean that in a very nourishing way. You need to choose yourself. And when you pull energy towards you, this is something I'm going to be talking about in more episodes to come. When you pull your energy all the way back to you, then other people will be magnetized towards you, because people with a secure attachment style, they radiate security, safety, confidence. And when you don't have that, then you will be pushing all the time up upon other people, and that is not going to magnetize anybody. That's going to be pushing them away. So that is how, this is one way, how you can change your attachment style. Now, I am mainly speaking from an anxious, avoidant point of view, leaning more towards anxious, because this is what my style was. And I would be mostly anxious. And then when it went too far, I would slip into avoidant to just like avoid everybody. Like, nope, I'm going to just isolate. But then there are also those who default into avoidant. They will shut down, they will isolate. And that is very difficult when you are but well, we'll get to that. I have a few questions about that. Let's go to the next question. The next one, can people have multiple attachment styles? I kind of already answered that. It is indeed a spectrum. And people will sometimes also respond with a different attachment style to a different person. You can also have a certain attachment style with your significant other and a different attachment style with your friends. And usually it depends on how comfortable you feel with them, how they make you feel, and what value you get from these people. But this again happens when you don't have a secure attachment style. So I believe you can exhibit characters of multiple attachment styles. Generally speaking, you will fall under one of the main 4 titles. But yeah, this question continues here. With most people, I come across as secure or neutral. And indeed, this person is saying when people are kind of dismissive of them, they get anxious. They lean more towards the anxious. And if people are leaning into them, all of a sudden they become avoidant. Well, this is a typical fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment style. And that's very confusing. So that this person seems to me to be having dismissive, what am I saying? No. the fearful, avoidant, disorganized attachment style, which is really the most confusing attachment style of all. And yeah, this is because during childhood, you were constantly navigating between those two to get your needs met. You were always going back and forth between one and the other to try to get some kind of emotional response from your caregivers. And that's why it seems like you indeed have multiple attachment styles. Now, let's continue to the next question. This is actually an interesting question. What happens when an avoidant person, somebody that would classify as being an avoidant person, having an avoidant attachment style, what happens when they fall for another person with avoidant attachment style? Do they then become more anxious? Now, typically, this doesn't really happen. Everything is energy. I'm going to be approaching this from a psychological point of view and an energetic point of view. Typically, anxious people will be the ones that they are going to be going to because in their childhood, they did not have their emotional needs met, so they would isolate, they would become avoidant. They would become self-reliant. They don't need anybody. They often have this whole facade of, I am fine on my own. I need nobody. We are still human beings. We crave social interaction. Nobody is fine on their own forever. This is just not true. Even secure people, you just need social interaction. We are tribal beings. We need to be in a tribe. And if you cannot do this in real life, like I am here living in Spain, mostly working on the internet, I don't speak the language that well. I don't really have friends here. So I have a lot of people that I reach out to, that I make phone calls with, that I am in contact with, just to keep my social levels up, basically. For the time being anyway, as long as we are here in Spain, this is the situation. So you have to try to stay social, find your tribe, whether this is in real life or online. So usually these people will end up with an anxious person. Because in the beginning, it's going to be fun. It's going to be nice. These people are meeting all of their emotional needs. Oh my God, it's amazing for the avoidant person. Then it gets too clingy, it gets too much, and they seriously back off. Why? Because all of a sudden they get uncomfortable with that level of intimacy, of closeness. It becomes clingy, it becomes extremely intimidating. And what happens then, of course, the avoidant person will retreat, will pull back, which is going to only increase the anxiety in the anxious person. And then you have the typical runner-chaser thing, something that we hear a lot about in spiritual communities when it comes to high-level soulmate connections, stuff like that. You hear a lot about the runner-chaser dynamic. And in any type of soul connection, contract, or anxious versus avoidant is the psychological term that you could use. This needs to be healed. There needs to be a surrendering. There needs to be a surrendering, a releasing of any outcome. There needs to be a returning within. There needs to be a going to the self, returning to the self. That's what needs to happen. Ultimately, this pattern presents itself so that you can heal from it. That is why these energetics present themselves to you, so that you can heal from this. Because if you are an avoidant and you are being confronted with only more avoidance, and I really believe that the avoidant people don't want to be avoidant. They are in a self-imposed prison of isolation. And the anxious people don't want to be anxious. They are in a self-imposed prison of constantly seeking outside of themselves until they reach their breaking point and they stop doing that, which is what we call the surrendering phase often in these soulmate relationships. But yeah, it is ultimately the invitation for you to revise your attachment style. So I think that's kind of what it is. But yeah, the question, if an avoidant person finds another avoidant, Yeah. Then one would become anxious. I don't know. I think it just wouldn't work. They would just both isolate and they would barely speak and it would just fizzle out, I would imagine. Let me know your thoughts. If on any of these things you have your ideas, you would like to offer feedback, do not hesitate to reach out, send me your questions, whatever, so I can address it in one of the upcoming episodes. Another last question. We can go on and on about attachment styles. I will probably be making many, many more episodes about attachment styles. Now, should I tell my partner that they are an avoidant person? This is what I believe after observing him, that he has an avoidant attachment style. This person asked me. No, I would not do that because what you are doing is then pushing. You are pushing them with your anxious stuff, basically. And then we can get into the law of polarity. We can get into feminine energy. This is all stuff that we will be covering in other topics. Do not do that because then you are going to be lecturing them like, oh, and yeah, I was like that too. We were all like that. We are conditioned. Pull your energy to you. And what can you do? You can only control yourself. You cannot change other people. You can change yourself. Okay, they are avoidant. Yeah, that sucks for you because you would like to do more stuff with them. What can you do in the meantime to have fun by yourself? What can you do to make yourself happy? Have you read that book that you would like to read? Are there things you would like to do? Do you like to be in nature? Don't wait for other people to go with you on that hike. Go there, take your camera, take some pictures, do this stuff on your own. And yeah, if you are just doing your thing in your energy, ultimately avoidant people may come out of their shell and realize that you are having fun on your own, and they may not feel as pushed and pressured anymore. They may actually start to reach out to you instead of feeling pushed. So don't do that. And avoidants already are aware that they are isolating. I think that they may be aware, but they may not be aware of the attachment theory. But I don't think it's not like, oh, you are an avoidant, you need to know this so that you can solve this about yourself, because then you're just going to add more shame, more pressure, more of that stuff onto them. So if you're asking me, and of course this whole podcast is just me speaking my opinions, okay? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, I'm just a lady that has gone through a lot of stuff in her life. And I'm just here recording for anyone who relates and who wants to listen. But my opinion is I would not say anything because I don't think that's going to be helpful. I think this is enough for our first episode because I can keep going and going, but we can fill many, many more episodes now. If you have any questions about any of this and you would like me to address it, let me know. Also, I love helping people one-on-one with their trauma healing, attachment styles, energy, anything that is Akashic records related, past lives. All of this stuff can also influence your attachment style, by the way. Ancestral stuff that you are carrying with you, that you got from your parents or ancestors way down the bloodline that you may never even have known in this lifetime. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, to book a session with me, to look into my mentorship. When you book a session with me for the first time, you get 50% off on your first session. I hope that you enjoyed this episode, and please send in your questions about trauma healing, energy healing in yourself and in your relationships, attachment styles, codependency, trauma bonds, cluster B, personality disorder, toxic relationships, feminine energy, polarity, soul contracts, psychic energy, and more, so that I can address them in upcoming episodes. And you will stay completely anonymous, of course. Have a great day and talk to you soon. Bye.